Well, hello again. Another yes or no issue to be examined. This one is a pretty big one. This may be the biggest of all, I suppose, with the exception of is there a God? Um, and that is, will the coronavirus inflict long-term damage? I'm not talking, by the way, on the impact on the health of individuals. Some people seem to be unable to shake it, but it's a very small percentage of total population. In fact, it's a very small percentage of people who even get the virus in the first place. So tough as that may be for those individuals, what I'm talking about here is something else. It's the long-term economic and to a lesser extent political impact worldwide of the virus. The fact is that as I'm making this video in October of 2020, we're experiencing another surge in infections everywhere. I guess we expected this to happen, but it's having quite an impact. We're going through various and sundry forms of restrictions and lockdowns and so forth, but to be honest, we're still in kind of a Cinderella period in terms of the effect on individuals, principally because of huge government support for individual incomes. And that can't continue forever. So we're not really kind of testing the difficulty of the coronavirus as yet. And of course, we're all hoping that the solution in terms of vaccines and so forth will eventually get us out of this bind, but we don't know that yet. So I guess it's time to examine whether we think that yes, it will inflict long-term damage, or no, it won't. So first of all, let's look at the yes people, those who say, oh yes, it definitely will. I guess looking at it from a macroeconomic standpoint, perhaps the big impact is going to be in what some economists call the scarring effect, the excessive caution imparted to the economy. That means that individuals will be inclined to spend less, to save more, to divert their consumption more to essentials, food, shelter, and so forth, and away perhaps from optional discretionary items, especially big capital items, new cars, televisions, telephones, digital devices, the kind of thing that people have fun with but don't really need just to stay alive. And similarly, from a corporate standpoint, the same mentality is likely to take effect in that companies will be more inclined to hoard their cash, less likely to make risky investments at all with uncertainty about future consumption patterns. So in general, a kind of throttling back both in consumption and investment. That really means kind of the economic doldrums and perhaps even worse. That could lead to recession, even depression, and so forth. So that's a kind of that's a negative outlook situation. Furthermore, that kind of difficulty really is going to be much worse for the economies that are heavily reliant on manufacturing output and the consumption of their products. Particularly countries like China are up to feel the pinch, and even though they have been relying more on their domestic economy, at some point it is really dependent upon consumption of their massive exports worldwide, and if that is curtailed, that's going to be tough for them. Next, it's going to be tough on specific industries, particularly, unsurprisingly, industries that depend upon tourism and discretionary travel. Certainly the hospitality industry, the hotel industry, even the restaurant industry is feeling the pinch and will continue to do so, particularly if restrictions are imposed from time to time on people's ability to go out and have a good time. Further, the airline and cruise industry, of course, is getting absolutely devastated, and one can't see this coming back quickly. I know as a personal consumer of these sorts of services, I and most of my friends are kind of reluctant to live up to our usual habits of flying around, going on walking holidays in Italy and Germany and that kind of thing, and even going out to restaurants and traveling around the country and staying at B&Bs. All of this we have throttled back. In fact, it's been quite a while since I've even been on a bus, and I don't need to. I can walk wherever I have to go, or if need be, I can drive. So when you add all that together, that's really tough for those industries, and it, of course, as we speak, is resulting in massive unemployment unless governments in various countries decide to bail them out. Many of those businesses will fail. The facilities, the hardware they have, the ships, the planes, and so forth, will still be there. So when eventually the economy comes back in whatever form it comes back, those assets will be bought up by somebody, and the industries will resume, but we don't know whether they will ever be at the level of activity that we saw up until very recently. If times get really tough, there certainly could be unrest, people upset because they don't have what they think they should be getting from government by way of support, or even in extreme cases having the kind of food they think they ought to have. And in this respect, alas, one of the lessons for the world is that autocratic economies, where the consent of the governed is really irrelevant and almost non-existent, will have an advantage. They'll simply be able to tell people to shut up and do what they're told, which we can't really do in the West in democratic economies. So it'll be an advantage for them, and this advantage will not go unnoticed, which may well lead to some more hard-nosed, draconian, control-oriented politics in the West. So that could be a huge effect. Next, the stock markets, which have responded pretty well after a big fall. They've kind of come back. But if this goes on much longer, the uncertainty implied in that could devastate the stock markets. If there's one thing stock markets don't like, it is uncertainty. If they know what's going to happen, they can kind of price in the present value of the cash flows of the economies and think about what that means for the price of securities. But when they can't really do that, when they don't really have enough of a handle to be able to do that reliably, they'll dump stock. And I should say that there is always a prejudice on the part of most stockbrokers and people who write investment letters to say, well, it'll get better, yeah, it might be a little bit uncertain, but it's not really a big problem. And perhaps they have a conflict of interest there because they have large portfolios of stocks and themselves, and they are not really the the end of the story. So there's uncertainty there, and that could be a big problem. Well, that's quite a long list of gloomy expectations on the part of the yes people. Let's take a look at those people who say no. We're not really talking about long-term damage here. It's not going to be as bad as all these pessimists say. So what are their arguments? Well, Number one, I suppose the biggest argument is, look, we go through all this kind of stuff from time to time, and it's, I won't say it's anything this big is routine, but it's certainly something the likes of which we have seen before. Even the 2007-2008 financial crisis, which devastated the stock market and caused a lot of problems. We came back from that pretty quickly. We've experienced natural disasters, mass migrations, other pandemics, wars, and so forth, and history is replete with these things, and we always come out of it. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others, but long-term permanent damage, I don't think so. I don't really think that's something that we have to worry about. The other argument in favor of those who say there won't be damaging effects is the fact that the stock markets are still kind of ticking over at a modest decline, but nothing awful. And the markets always seem to get these things right. They know whether or not they should be very pessimistic or just a little bit pessimistic. And what all the stock markets seem to be saying worldwide is, yeah, it's going to be a little bit tough, but don't worry, it'll come back. There's going to be some big buying opportunities there. So long term, don't worry about it. Well, those are the essence of the arguments where people disagree with long-term effect. So what do I think about it? What's my take? Well, my take, of course, is really one of uncertainty. What we're really banking on is the fact that we'll have solutions to these public health problems, particularly the coronavirus, but other things of this sort, should they continue to pop up in any way. We're depending on the scientists to come up with vaccines. We're depending on concepts like herd immunity. We're depending on curative medicine. Donald Trump's recent experience in the hospital suggests that that's possible. So that's the kind of thing that we're depending on. We're sort of in the hands of the scientists. But my guess is that if we continue to feel these long-term damaging effects of the sorts that the yes people outlined, at some point governments are simply going to shrug and say, well, we just have to accept this. We have to allow the coronavirus to take its toll, to cull the less robust members of our populations, and simply get on with it, because the alternative of allowing our economies and the financial positions of governments to deteriorate too much is even worse. It's a problem that we can't even contemplate. It would be so awful. It is a time of uncertainty. Of course, no matter what happens here, at some point we'll come out of it. So therefore, the only question is how long. I just hope it'll be sooner than later. Okay, well, that's all I've got to say on the subject. It's really a tough one, and one that I wouldn't put any stock on anybody's predictions on this, because, as I say, there are too many uncertainties, and even with respect to the science involved. Okay, well, hope you liked that. If you did, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, please comment, and by the way, as I've mentioned before, if you have any further suggestions for the channel, please leave them in the comments, and I'll see you at the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.